You're tuning into the Legal Hour. I'm your host and moderator, Attorney Willie Stephens. Legal Hour. I am Attorney Willie Stephens, and I am here with the wonderful, the awe-inspiring Attorney Gregory Payton. Gregory Payton, thank you for coming today.
Listen, I like a little smoke. I do, but let me say this: I appreciate being here. It's a blessing being here. Willie, you and I have known each other, for the past decade or so, and we've been able to work together. And whatever information I could give to your audience about how this family law thing works, then I will be more than happy to share, and hopefully it helps somebody out in the long run.
Well, let's get into it. We've had a lot of questions being asked by our office. People call in. We go to different events. They're asking certain questions on the area of family law. The first thing we need to discuss here is, what are the different types of marriage?
So I think it really depends on what state you're in, but in Louisiana, we've pretty much got two different types of marriages. You have just a regular marriage, and then you have what would be considered a covenant marriage. So the difference between the two is that in a covenant marriage, you would need to have a clergyman counsel the couple prior to the marriage, and there is an additional contractual obligation with the state that you would have to submit in order for the marriage to be considered covenant. Outside of that, the differences only really come in not necessarily in the beginning or during the marriage, but if the marriage were to dissolve or you were to get a divorce. That's where the primary differences come in at. Because nowadays, most people are going to have some sort of marriage counseling that they'll participate in anyway. But it's not a requirement underneath the law. The covenant marriage makes it a requirement. So where you'll see the difference at is in the end. If people decide to get a divorce, if that couple decides to get a divorce, that's where you'll see the difference.
I have had multiple people asking me a question concerning when they're talking about, when you're saying a covenant marriage, is that the same type of marriage where maybe you see more of like the Amish getting those type of marriages where it's not easily broken?
So I'm not very familiar with the Amish marriages because we don't see a whole lot of that in Louisiana. But my understanding of it is their marriages are more based on their traditional norms, and they really don't follow a lot of times the state rules of what the marriage will be. At all, because in some of those communities, and I don't want to misquote those communities, but some of those communities you'll see traditionally they will allow polygamous marriages where you can have multiple wives. Okay. We're not here in Louisiana.
So that's not what we're doing here.
No, you only get one in Louisiana. So, but
like it or not,
So where you'll see the difference at, like I said, more along the lines is when you are having a marriage dissolve. When two people decide that they're gonna this is it, and we're gonna go our separate ways. There's some differences that you will see in a covenant marriage as opposed to a traditional or non-covenant.
And I know you stated that there was the difference in the covenant marriage and the regular or traditional marriage is the type of divorce. Is that correct?
That's correct. So what typically would happen in a traditional marriage is that there would need to be a particular amount of time that would have to pass for you to for your divorce to be finalized, at least in Louisiana. So if you have children, typically the wait time is a year. If you do not have children, the wait time is 6 months. Unless there is some other type of extraordinary circumstances that I know we'll probably talk about later, such as like infidelity and things.
Yes, that's what I was heading toward, that direction. So what is there, like 3 different types of divorces that you can get in Louisiana, or is there more?
So
are there more? I'm sorry.
Well, actually, there are more than that. So you've got what would be considered what we would consider a 102 divorce, which is a divorce where you would file for your divorce and then you would wait the time period that is required by law. So in a marriage where there's children, you would have to wait a year.
Okay.
If the marriage is without children, then you would have to wait 6 months.
So it's really based upon whether or not you have children, the time requisite as far as getting your actual divorce.
Right. So,
Okay.
and that's for a traditional marriage.
Okay.
So when you talk about a covenant marriage, it's the wait times are essentially doubled. So you would have to wait 2 years if you had a child, or you would have to wait 1 year if you did not have a child. In addition to that, you would have to seek out the counseling of clergy in order to be able to try to reunify the marriage first.
Okay.
And if that doesn't occur, then that particular clergy member would have to sign off that the requisite amount of couples treatment or couples therapy had occurred, and these folks are now going to get divorced.
Okay.
And that's underneath what we call a 102 divorce, which is essentially, if somebody can remember, you would file and then wait.
Okay.
Now, 103 divorce.
So you're saying that you will file what type, is it like a petition? What would that person have to file?
So you would have to file a petition in the court,
Okay.
and you would have to request that the court recognize that you are seeking a divorce and that you intend on living separate and apart from that person, and that time period is dependent on whether or not you were married, not married, but whether or not you had children or there were no children from the marriage.
Okay. And I know that a lot of people, this is what they do. This is the type of questions that I get all the time. Can I be living separate and apart and still living in the same house? We don't have enough money to get 2 separate houses. How do I make a determination?
So I know that lots of folks attempt to do that.
Sleep in another bedroom or something like that.
But there has to be what's considered a separation of bed and board. So you cannot have 2 people residing in the same house and considering themselves living separate and apart. Because if you think about it from this perspective, if you've got 2 people living in the same house, then a lot of times you'll have it where one person may feel that the relationship or the marriage is going in one direction.
I can see that.
And then you got another one who's thinking something different. And then especially when you've got circumstances where people are still romantically involved. Well, let me say this, not romantically involved, but there's still a physical component to their relationship that it kind of muddies the waters.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more difficult, and one of them thinking we're still together, we've actually reunified, for the lack of a better term, and the other one saying, no, we've been apart and we were just having fun.
Right.
Okay, I got you.
Now that's where the second type of divorce that you were talking about comes in there, which is what we would
103 divorce,
which we would call a 103 divorce.
Yes.
So underneath the terms of what a 103 divorce is, essentially what it's saying is you don't have to wait. Something has happened where you can seek grounds for an immediate divorce. That something could be you've already lived separate and apart. Okay. So if you've lived separate and apart for 6 months if you're not married, or 180 days if you're not married, or if you've lived apart for the 365 days if you, not married, children. If you don't have children, you've been living separate and apart for 180 days. If you have children, you've been living separate and apart for 365 days. Then you can petition the court and say, hey, I've already met these terms.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and get divorced now.
Okay.
Then there are other things or circumstances underneath a 103 that can also allow you to have an immediate divorce, such as...
And when you're saying immediate, what do you mean when you say immediate?
After you're able to show the court that you have met the particular requirements, then the court will grant you the divorce without the necessity to wait. So
yes, I got you. So that's what you're saying. When you're saying immediate, it's not like you go in there today and then you get divorced because you show this information to the court.
Right. And depending on, because I handle divorces all over the state. Some places will let you get to that point much faster than other places.
Okay.
Such as in Baton Rouge and in New Orleans, they've got dedicated family courts. So they have dedicated family court judges. So, and they've got a dedicated family court section where you're going to be able to have your petition presented to the judge in a much more rapid manner than you would in places like where we're from.
Yeah.
In North Louisiana, in the
More
Washita
rural,
Parish,
yeah.
in Morehouse Parish area, where you've got judges who
Hold on now, let's be careful.
I'm not talking about.
I love Bastrop, you know.
Yeah.
Come on, let's.
Well, no, I'm not talking about it. But what I'm saying more of is that you've got judges who have to handle civil court,
Everything.
criminal
And
court,
timing.
family
I
court.
understand.
So they've only got a dedicated amount of time each month to deal with that, and then they may also
Travel.
circulate between
Yeah.
the different sections or within the different parishes. So like in a parish or like in the 18th Judicial District Court, you know, that consists of West Baton Rouge Parish, that consists of the parish where Plaquemine is, and then you've got the parish where New Rose is. So you've got 3 parishes, 3 different courthouses, and you've got judges that have to travel between.
And so that is what you're saying, as far as that being the thing that will make it last, take a little bit longer, because there are so many cases and they're handling different types of cases.
Correct.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think in the 4th JDC it's the exact same thing, because that encompasses Washita Parish and and Bastrop. Is that
Right.
correct? Okay.
So that includes
So Morehouse and Washita, yeah.
Morehouse and Washita Parish, and you've got judges that have to make their rounds in between those parishes and be able to deal with the different sections, including civil, family, and criminal. But kind of to get back to what we were talking about concerning the immediate divorce, so we talked about waiting the time first and then filing, but there are other options, such as if there's been any sort of infidelity,
Okay.
and that infidelity can be proven.
And what does infidelity truly mean here?
Underneath,
It don't mean looking at nobody's butt or anything like that, does it?
in Louisiana, it means specifically you have had sex with somebody else outside the confines of your marriage.
Does it matter the type of sex?
It doesn't. You just have to be able to show the person who's requesting that divorce based upon infidelity has to be able to prove that the infidelity has occurred. You have to have proof that you know for a fact that this person has had sex with another person that is not yourself during a marriage, and then you can seek a marriage a divorce. I'm sorry, from that perspective.
Okay, well, I've actually had and the reason why I'm asking this question is because I've had a client that asked me this one time. She asked me whether or not she can get an immediate divorce based on infidelity, but I asked her, well, how do you know? How can we prove this? And she stated that she had text messages from him, actually, I guess, with pictures of the other young lady, them going out to dinner, and them spending time together, and then him making some sort of, I guess, text where the underlying, I guess, understanding is that, yes, we're having sex.
Right.
Is that enough for the courts here?
Well, that's what I mean. If you think back to what I was just saying a few seconds ago, that you've got to come to court when you ask the question about the immediacy of the divorce. So you've got to come to court and be able to put on your evidence to prove that this happened.
Okay.
And as you are aware of, the levels of evidentiary, the standard that you have to meet for evidence is different in criminal court as opposed to it is in a civil court. So in criminal court, of course, is beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
But there are different levels of proof that you can introduce that may sway a judge to be able to determine that that's enough evidence to warrant the immediate divorce.
Okay.
So, and then you've got different types of immediate divorces where there's been physical or sexual abuse
Yes,
to
that's what I was going to get to next. Yes.
to the spouse or even to one of the children. So you can receive a divorce based upon that. You can receive a divorce based upon whether or not there has been a sentence. One of the people in the marriage has been sentenced to a hard labor sentence, where they're going to be serving time in prison, and it's going to be at hard labor, and you can bring that into court and be able to show where you can have a divorce.
An immediate divorce based on that. Does the time matter? Because as you know, as both of us know, we both practice in the area of family and in criminal. And so the question becomes here, would a 1-year sentence at hard labor be the exact same thing as a 100-year sentence? So concerning the actual being able to get an immediate divorce.
So according to what the law says, it's just based on whether or not it's a hard labor sentence.
Okay.
So it doesn't give any credence to time, whether it's 5 years or 50 years.
Or 6 months. Doesn't matter.
So, a hard labor sentence is going to be a year or more. So we're looking at whatever it's going to be is going to have to be at least a year, because that's where your felony or hard labor sentences come in at. So we know it's going to be a year or more.
Okay. So I guess let's say, I don't want to go too far off, but to try to maybe put some meat on this bone just a little bit more. Let's say if a person is pleading to a criminal case, and the sentence carries, let's say, 1 to 5 years. There is a statute in Louisiana that allows you to actually sentence that person for a lower amount than the minimum. And so I guess that becomes my question, whether or not, if he is sentenced, even though the statute states that it has to be 1 year to 10 years, if he's actually sentenced, and I think it's maybe like a 90.1 sentence or something like that. But if he's sentenced for 6 months, does it matter there, or is it just long as the crime was actually a hard labor sentence?
So the person has to be sentenced to hard labor.
Sentenced to hard labor.
Correct.
Okay.
So you know that there may be a crime that a person can receive. It says in the law, with or without hard labor. So they can either go to prison and serve time, or they may be able to have the same sentence where they're able to be on probation, which is a non-hard labor sentence. It's a felony, but it's not hard labor. So the law requires it to be a sentence of a hard labor sentence, which means they're going to have to serve some time in prison.
Okay.
And that's where you would be able to get that immediate divorce. So like I said, those are just some of the differences in how you can receive. Another way is if you find out the person is already married, then that's another way to be able to receive.
I didn't even think about that one, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
To receive an immediate divorce, because the person is considered to be what they would call a putative spouse. So you could get an immediate divorce based upon that. So to put a bow on it, you've got 2 different types of divorces that you can be granted. However, there's multiple different subsections underneath the immediate divorce.
I see.
As opposed to the non-immediate divorce or the file and wait.
Okay. So thank you for clearing that up for us, because I'm sure a lot of people in the audience they have a lot of questions concerning family law. And when you're talking about divorce, that's one of the major topics when you're going to any type of, we have like these events that we do from time to time, and people call me to the back and they want to talk about certain things. I can almost flip a coin and realize it's going to be a family law question. And I thank you for clearing it up for our audience here today. How does the layperson determine which divorce is best for them?
So I would say to anybody, to the audience out there, to even to a licensed and seasoned attorney, if you're going to get a divorce, get yourself an attorney if it's possible.
And not yourself as your attorney. Because I know a lot of attorneys, they think they can represent themselves.
Right. And you know what they say, the old saying, I forgot who said it, but you know, an attorney who represents himself has a fool for a client. So it's best to get yourself an attorney, or if you cannot afford an attorney, at least find an attorney who's willing to sit down with you and give you some, at least have a meeting with them where you're going to be able to have a consultation where you can pay the attorney to at least tell you, well, what's going to be the best way for me to proceed in this matter based upon the information that I'm giving you. Because those are some options for them as well. But I would say get yourself an attorney if you can. But there are some options that are out there for people who do not have the ability maybe to afford an attorney. So you've got in most of the districts in Louisiana, they have self-help. So you may be able to go into the courthouse, or you may be able to go to their courthouse's website or to the website of their clerk of court, and they may have forms that you may be able to download yourself, and they may be able to give you some very minimal instruction on how to fill those forms out, and they may be able to help guide you through the process of filing for divorce.
I guess, how does the layperson determine which divorce is best for them?
So I would say to anybody, to the audience out there, to even to a licensed and seasoned attorney, if you're going to get a divorce, get yourself an attorney if it's possible.
Not yourself as your attorney, because I know a lot of attorneys, they think they can represent themselves.
Right. And you know what they say, the old saying, I forgot who said it, but you know, an attorney who represents himself has a fool for a client. So it's best to get yourself an attorney, or if you cannot afford an attorney, at least find an attorney who's willing to sit down with you and give you some, at least have a meeting with them where you're going to be able to have a consultation where you can pay the attorney to at least tell you, well, what's going to be the best way for me to proceed in this matter based upon the information that I'm giving you. Because those are some options for them as well. But I would say get yourself an attorney if you can. But there are some options that are out there for people who do not have the ability maybe to afford an attorney. So you've got in most of the districts in Louisiana, they have self-help. So you may be able to go into the courthouse, or you may be able to go to their courthouse's website or to the website of their clerk of court, and they may have forms that you may be able to download yourself, and they may be able to give you some very minimal instruction on how to fill those forms out, and they may be able to help guide you through the process of filing for divorce for yourself.
Is that like a free service that they offer throughout the state, you're saying?
So, yes.
The documents may be free, but I guess when they have to file it, is that free, or is it, how does it work?
Well, no, anything dealing with civil law is not going to be free. A person may qualify based upon their income for a delay in the payment of fees.
Okay.
But it's not going to be.
But they still have to pay them.
Right. Somebody's going to have to pay them before it's all said and done. Right. So you've got the self-help desk that may be available, and then in some parishes and in some districts, they have bar association, may have attorneys that may be able to provide pro bono services. Most of the time, though, those are for circumstances where there may be a non-contested divorce. Most of the time, because you've done services like that in the past, where it may be a divorce that may be a simple divorce that does not take a lot of time and it's not
Billable
going to be,
hours.
and it's not
Correct.
going to be cost. It's not going to be. It's not going to be a cost for that attorney to be able to assist that client. And also in different parts of the state, they have legal aid. So here where we are in Baton Rouge, they have Southeast Louisiana Legal Services that you may be able to go to them, and they may be able to provide services for you. In North Louisiana, they've got Northwest Louisiana Legal Services. So in different parts of the state, they may have legal aid that's available to be able to assist someone as well.
I've heard this saying, it's cheaper to keep her. Is that the truth? Or is it it's according to who she is, huh?
You know, here's what I will say. You know, I'm a country boy just like you, and my dad is a pastor, my grandfather's a pastor. So I mean, if you look at the root word of divorce, die is a part of that. So you're gonna lose something in a divorce,
you
right?
said die, okay.
Right. You're gonna lose something, right? Within a divorce. It really just depends on different factors. Now, we traditionally believe, or we traditionally think, when in a marriage, the man would traditionally be the primary breadwinner.
Yeah.
However, you know, we're in a different time age now where men are not necessarily the primary breadwinners of the family. Most marriages require a 2-income household to be able to support those marriages. It's not like it was in the days of our grandparents where you didn't need credit at all to get a house. You just they needed to be able to prove you had a job and that you made money to be able to afford it. Times are different. So, but the general premise of what you're saying is there is some truth to it, but it just really depends on the relationship, how long the parties have been married to one another, whether or not one of the parties has really been the overall earner in the family. When a person is married, or when two people are married, they both equally own anything that was acquired during the marriage. That means whether it's a asset or a liability, they are equal owners of that. We call it in the law the community of equity and gains. Some people are going to refer to it as community property, or you can say it's a community property regime. But essentially what you're talking about is if it's acquired during the marriage, whether it's an asset or a liability, then both people are equal owners. Both people have what's called undivided 1/2 interest in that thing. So if I could give an example.
Yes.
This coffee cup, right? If this coffee mug was purchased during the marriage and my wife and I are both 100% owners of this coffee cup, our interest in the coffee cup is undivided. We both are 100% owners of the coffee cup. Now, once it comes time for a divorce to happen, if a divorce were to happen, then what's got to happen is that, hey, you and I own this coffee cup together. How much is this coffee cup worth? Because we cannot, the coffee cup,
the actual cup.
You cannot slice the cup in half, right? So at this point, we have to say, okay, well, this cup is worth $2. If you want to keep the cup, then you're going to need to give me $1. Or I may credit you that $1 towards something else. There's a barter. So
go from the $1 there for maybe, let's say, maybe a car.
Right.
Get a credit for a car or something.
It could be credited to, you like coffee mugs, because my wife collects Starbucks mugs. When we travel,
I didn't know there was a thing.
It's a thing. So when we travel, we were in Italy last year. We had to drive a taxi across town during the time that we were there,
For
an
a coffee
hour out of
mug.
the way for a coffee mug in Italy. Now, that's her thing. I applaud her for her thing, but God forbid we were ever to separate. I have no interest in those cups.
Yeah.
However, those cups have a value. They were purchased while we were married, and maybe I like, maybe I like, maybe I like different types of cups. I got whiskey glasses. Maybe I like those, or I purchased a car while we were married, and really, it's more of my project than hers. Well, maybe she's going to give me a credit towards that, and that's where the trade
Offset.
comes. It offsets, right?
Okay.
So to answer the question, then yes, it can be cheaper to keep her or him, but it just depends on the circumstances of the marriage.
I want to end on more of a lighter note because I know as attorneys we experience some of the craziest things that you could even think about in a courtroom. I've experienced several in multiple jurisdictions throughout the state. What is one of the craziest things that you've experienced in family law court throughout the state? And if you don't want to, you don't have to even tell us the jurisdiction, but just tell us something that's crazy that you've experienced.
In family court, there's so much. I mean,
I know.
I mean, anything from folks fighting to in court, out of court. There's
When you're saying fight, you're talking about physically coming to blows.
oh yeah, where you've got parties who may have been married and now they've divorced or they're on the verge of getting divorced, and you've got one spouse who's bringing the new boo in the court, but
disrespect.
that person may have been the person who the husband or the wife said you may have been involved with this person.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was never that. And then they come to court, or so you've got those types of situations that happen all the time. It's hard to put a finger on it, but I'll just say that that on any given Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday in Baton Rouge, if you want some entertainment, just come downtown.
It's a family court.
Go to the fourth floor and just sit out in the lobby. There's a lot. But I enjoy. I'll say this: I enjoy my job because I've been able to view it from all sides.
Yeah.
I am the product of parents who co-parented, and I also and being in a blended family, I co-parent, and now I have a blended family, and I have had the pleasure of representing people who co-parent and are in blended families. I've had the opportunity to be able to represent children who are in need of care from abuse and neglect. I've had the opportunity to be able to represent parents who are adopting children who have been in untenable situations and have seen the beautiful backside of that to see them become a family. So I've been blessed. So if I had to really focus more on anything, I think I would focus more on even though it's tough, it's still, I remember me being a child in a similar situation, and I like the fact that I'm able to be a voice for the voiceless.
Yes.
The children who aren't able to speak and who aren't able to give their side. I tell parents all the time when they come in, if they are going to hire me, then you may be the one paying the money, but I'm really working on behalf of the kids.
Correct.
So if that's not what you are concerned about, then I might not be right person for you. So that's what drives me more than the horror stories. It's the good stuff that I get to do.
And with that, Attorney Payton, we would like to thank you. Tell the people how to get in contact with you.
So listen, everybody, it's beautiful that Willie invited me to come in because we share office space together. We're right here on give the address with it because now I'm forgetting our address.
It's 11960
Brixham Avenue, Suite C.
There you go.
Right,
in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Right here in Baton Rouge.
And if you need to get in contact with him in Monroe, you can always contact our 1900 North 18th Street, and we can get him there too for you.
Yes, yep, and we're right here together. I've been knowing Willie now, like he said, for the better part of a decade, and we've had an opportunity to watch our practices grow together, and it's always a blessing, and I appreciate everything. And like I said, we're right here, and our telephone number is 225-366-5072.
There you go.
That's what we are. You can reach us right here, and we appreciate it.
And with that, I would like to thank you all for tuning in. If you have any other questions, please put it in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.